Hello everyone, and we are aware that there is a 6.3 coming to the game. One thing that took me a little bit by surprise was the fact that the Tomb Kings are going to be getting a little bit of an update. Now we don't know how large this is, but yeah, I had to take a few days to think about what could be fixed up for the Tomb Kings. They still stand as one of my all-time favorite DLCs in the Total War Warhammer series. But just because I like it doesn't mean that it's perfect, obviously, so let's talk about the Tomb Kings today and see what could be fixed up just to make them a little bit better. But before anything, I very much doubt that the Tomb Kings are going to get this massive rework overhaul like what happened to Kislev. Kislev desperately needed massive functional changes. So what I'm more hoping for is more quality of life improvements just to kind of make the Tomb King campaign a little bit better. Like a focus on changing up the tech tree would be great, for example. The tech tree isn't really the best. It serves its function, yes, because all bases are basically covered here, but what needs to be done is streamline it a little bit. I think all the punishment that's there is not great for the newer players. This is the whole thing about unlocking a new army. You know, that reduces your tech speed, and that becomes really problematic for most new people. So what could be done here is just change it. Use the new system that was implemented with the Chaos Dwarfs that has been used more and more lately. Change each section to be styled after a pyramid, so you're working your way up to unlock a new army, meaning that you're getting benefits and you're not losing out on massive amounts of tech bonus, so it just becomes slower and slower. Like this, it could still take 15 to 20 turns to unlock a new army, but at least your other stuff is getting better. I like the current tech tree, don't get me wrong, all those pseudo-lords and stuff are very, very cool, but if it didn't have so much punishment there, it would have been a lot better. There's a lot of tech which requires you spending money, canopic jars, and we'll talk about canopic jars in just a little second, but the main issue is getting the lord. Just the reduction there is very, very painful, and as the AI has been improved a little bit and has gotten a little bit more aggressive, you're under fire a lot. You need to have armies up and running. I still think that armies should be completely free because at the end of the day, it just fits with their theme. So reformatting the tech tree should potentially fix this. Obviously, the devs might have some better plans, but let's hope that this is something that they're looking towards. Canopic jars are a key resource for the Tomb Kings. You use them for a fair amount of stuff, and there is a fair amount of events and ways to get them. The problem is that it's still very, very slow until you start getting into later campaign and you've specifically been building up those buildings or getting those skill points. Honestly, what I'd say here is just make it more common in battle. The Harvest Organs option is fairly decent, but I think it's always 30, so you're not really getting that much, and it can get rather expensive if you're trying to unlock stuff. Just have it like how everything works with corn, for example. It's literally you're getting skulls as you're getting into battle. If you harvest them, then you could probably get a little bit more, but the main idea is start introducing faster ways to get canopic jars. It's very noticeable when you start looking towards the mortuary cult. If you want more heroes, you're going to need a lot of canopic jars, especially when you start going for new dynasties to get new armies. Like I said before, the Tomb Kings have a very unique experience, but it needs to be a little bit less punishing when you start looking towards new armies coming in. The AI can naturally generate it, they've got their own cheats and such, but when it comes to the player, it's very, very punishing, especially for new players. You want more and more heroes, but it can be a problem there. You can go a full campaign with just ignoring the Legions of Legend, even sometimes when it comes to the pseudo regiments of renown, because in most cases you're saving up just to buy new dynasties. The same can be said for the new mortuary cult. It's very expensive and a lot of your building slots would be wasted very early on whilst you're still trying to get all those resources. Now, I'm not going to complain too much if they increased just the general generation of the canopic jars, that'll be fine. The only thing I would say is, it'd just be kind of nice if more items were added in for the Tomb Kings, just to be able to get more items, because overall it's a really nice system. The dwarves use it too, but I think that it would just be kind of cool just to add in a few more stylized items. There's a lot of Tomb King items out there in the lore through various different army books, so this incentivizes you as the Tomb King player to get these items rather than the ones that are dropping. And one little request is just increase the stats of the Destroyer of Eternities, because, it's a stupid, ridiculous item from the lore. And I'd love to see it being horrendously stupid here too. I hate to say this, I really hate to say this, but the lore of Nakara sucks. Yeah. It's not a great lore of Magic. In most cases, you're just going to be ignoring it. And I think it's got a lot to do more with Games Workshop more than Creative Assembly. It's just like, yeah, you know, single target for physical resistance for 18 seconds, or just some base weapon damage and armor piercing damage. What I'd say is maybe with the augmented version, so upgrade the spell and just make them focus on being more of an area effect bonus, it would be kind of nice. It's a bit issue here because something like that needs to be approved by Games Workshop, but the lore needs to be kind of fixed over. No visuals or stuff, I think the visuals are fine. And thankfully, Creative Assembly have been going back during patches and DLCs and fixing up stuff, so hopefully this can be just really fixed up. I want a reason to use the Law of Nakara, but, you know, you've got other laws and they're generally better. They're just generally better. I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, but I like recruitment through capacity. I think it works very, very well for the Tomb Kings, as you're not really paying that much for your troopers. You've just got to get certain buildings. What I would say is, yeah, it would be nice if, one, it was increased so the capacity was a little bit better overall, because if not, you've got one really good army, and then you've got kind of garbage stacks following around, which does become a bit of a problem. Or two, having a lot more events pop up which will permanently increase certain capacity. RNG-focused capacity events might be good to incentivize you to recruit certain troopers, but it definitely needs to be a bit more fluid so it gives you more push for your campaign. There have been many times where I'm still running kind of skeleton stacks, basic skeleton stacks, and it gets kind of frustrating though. I did my campaign to get my achievement, and it was mostly just 2 good armies and everything else was just back defending. Actually, not gonna lie, there were certain troops like the Hero Titan that I just didn't actually recruit throughout that whole campaign, and that was a good 18-hour campaign on stream, more or less. So this is something new that I'd like to see, and I'm not sure how people are going to go for it, but I'd like to see a progress bar. That's not what you think. I'd like to see a progress bar for the pyramids. So right now we get some powerful bonuses for the Books of Nagash, and we'll talk about them in just a second, but you're incentivized to kind of go for pyramids. There's actually quite a lot. There's in just your capital city of Khemri, or wherever you're playing really. There's one in Numas. You can find them around. Why isn't there a progress bar kind of just to build up with faction bonuses that you can get from getting the pyramids built, incentivizing you further? Yes, all these pyramids do provide some decent bonuses, but tune down the bonuses a little bit and then put some more powerful bonuses in the progress bar, incentivizing you fully to go around and building them up. Because in some cases, you can really just ignore going for these different types of pyramids. Get some bonuses, maybe increase chances of a random blessing from the Pantheon of Nakara. Think about it like the Lizard Men, you know, where you're linking up all the different temple cities and so on, but just focused heavily on the Tomb Kings and a little bit better, I'd like to think, there. Because the idea there would, again, be just like bringing Nakara back to its former glory. The Books of Nagash aren't too bad. What I think is that some of the bonuses aren't great. You know, like immune to sandstorm attrition, income from trade tariffs. It's not great. I think all of them should just increase capacity in some way, shape, or form. So you still get other bonuses. You know, maybe just tune them down a little bit, but increase unit capacity through there to kind of add more incentives to go for them. I think a lot of people are calling for teleports. I don't know if teleports would kind of work there. Because then you need to take the settlements, you need to fight the army there. I feel like the system should remain the same, and maybe it might change in the future if and when Nagash eventually gets added in, but giving more incentive would be kind of good. Like, for example, the 5th book of Nagash that I've got here is Army Capacity +1, Tomb Guard with Halberds, and Skeletal Chariots +5. That's fantastic. That gives me a reason to go there. It's very far, but I could send a unit there. In most cases, and I think in my last campaign with them, I didn't even bother with any other books, even the ones that were around the area. If they kind of just push a little incentive more, I'd kind of be more into it. Skill points and traits in general need to get a proper update. The traits for the Tomb Kings, the specific ones, just kind of feel pretty boring. Same thing with skill points. You maybe have 1 or 2 options. Sometimes you've got 4 options, like with the Tomb King Lords, but once you pick one, yeah, the others are locked out. It's about time that they got a little bit of a facelift there. Now, I don't imagine that the Tomb Kings will get another DLC in the future. Maybe one of those smaller ones, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the skills for the Tomb Kings, yeah, it's fallen behind from others. A lot of races are actually having that issue. But, you know, the High Elves are coming up soon for the DLC in Tides of Torment, so we know that they're pretty much going to get an update there. Same thing as Norska. It would be nice if the Tomb Kings just got a little bit of a facelift there. Alright, going back to the Mortuary Cult, I've got an idea. There should be confederation through this. You pay a stupid amount of Kopic jars, and you end up getting Kateb, Khalida, Arkin, or whatever, right? But here's something to make it even more interesting. If you pay an extortionate amount of the Kopic jars, you should be able to confederate or recruit Cetra. However, should you recruit Cetra, your faction turns into Cetra. So your faction leader is no longer Khalida or Kateb, but in fact you get Cetra. Maybe this can be done where it changes your faction effects to Cetra's ones, or they just kind of homogenize. Maybe it's too expensive, but I feel like Cetra would be the leader, right? So it's like, oh, you're playing Kateb, you've just revived Cetra again, or you've just awakened him. Boom, he's in charge, you're now the second banana. It just kind of makes sense given who Cetra is, and Cetra would not serve anyone else. I still think Confederation is important. Nothing was brought in for that for Omens of Destruction. It's kind of disappointing. More Confederation options should be there. And I feel like it's something that a lot of people like doing because it's giving you the option of playing Pokemon. You don't have to if you don't like it, but it's always good to have that option. I do wish there was something more for Arkin specifically because, well, you know, he should kind of be treated as some sort of sub-faction. Right now he's got access to Felbats, Crypt Ghouls, and Direhounds and Hexwraiths, which is nice, but I don't know, man. It would be cool if you had a little bit more access to certain magics, Lore of Vampires, a few more undead-style units. Maybe this is something that we might see in the future when the Lore of Undeath eventually comes in, and that will be focused around Nagash. So maybe just completely forget about Arkin until that happens, before something unique gets given to him. It's just, you know, he's there, and there's not really much reason to use him, is there? I mean, he's cool, he's very, very cool, but Cetra kind of just takes it for me. It might be nice, but it might be too expensive. This is what I'm thinking about, because obviously development cost does cost money, right? Especially for the patches, that does cost Creative Assembly cash, because, you know, generation of content, just in general, labor costs and so on. These patches are free. Maybe I'm asking for a bit too much for Arkin here. For now, at least. Now, before we end this video, I would say it's still pretty viable for the Tomb Kings to get some sort of DLC in the future. One of those mini DLCs I've been talking about, like, for example, what's happening with, well, what is alluded to be Neferata. It's pretty much Neferata. Tomb Kings currently don't have a legendary hero. They're still missing pretty much the most iconic Lord choice, which is actually the Lich Priests, right? It's, well, the High Priests and stuff like that. It's kind of weird that the hero font isn't there, considering that you had to legally take one to have your army for the tabletop and so on, and for some reason that's just not the sake here, which I understand is for gameplay purposes, but it's really weird when you think about it for the sake of, well, Games Workshop being so anal about their lore, and yet for some reason this, you know, isn't there. Like, you still have to take one for the tabletop in Old World too. It'd be nice if we had another legendary lord also. Just another option would be great. I know some people are thinking that Nagash is going to be a Tomb King. I think he's going to be treated as his own separate thing. But Prince Apophis I can expect with Nagash, but maybe another hero. Just kind of a small DLC just to finish up the roster. Hell, I wouldn't say no to a Khemric Titan, for example. But just, it doesn't have to be as big as an individualized Lord pack at this point. Finish it up, call it a day, done, right? But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I've been thinking about the Tomb Kings. It's like, okay, yeah, they want to bring it in line with Warhammer 3. Let's see, how would I envision it? How would you guys envision it? I know some people probably are going to say they have different ideas, and that's a good thing, to be honest. That's actually a very, very good thing. There are so many ways to interpret all the different factions in Warhammer Fantasy, and it's great to see the different interpretations. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you all again very, very soon. It is incredibly hot right now, and I'm going to try and finish off painting some Cathaeans. I'm having a lot of fun painting them. It's been awesome just to paint up a brand new army. See you all very, very soon, guys. Have a great day.